Uppity was one of the rudest people in the world, if not the rudest. He was rude to anybody and everybody. So, of course, in Big Town, which is where he lived, he had no friends at all. Not one. Miserable old Uppity, they used to call him. And he certainly looked it. Now, as well as being rude, Mr. Uppity was also rich. Very rich. One of the richest people in the world, if not the richest. He had the largest, longest limousine in Big Town. He had the largest, longest garden in Big Town. He had, on the top of a hill in the middle of Big Town, the most enormous house. The biggest house in Big Town. And there he lived, all alone, miserable old Uppity. One day, Mr. Uppity was walking in the gardens of his enormous house, when suddenly he heard a voice. "Hello," said the voice. Mr. Uppity looked, and there, in one of his hundreds of flower beds, was a goblin. "Are you not going to say hello to me?" said the goblin. "Go away," said Mr. Uppity rudely. "Oh, I know who you must be," said the goblin. "You must be Mr. Uppity, who's rude to everybody." Sniffed Mr. Uppity rudely. "Well, I know somebody who wants to meet you," said the goblin, and he skipped off, the way goblins do. Mr. Uppity's curiosity got the better of him. He followed. "In there," said the goblin, pointing at a small hole in a tree. "Don't be silly," snorted Mr. Uppity. Oh, I'm not being silly," said the goblin. "Yes, you are," snapped Mr. Uppity. "I can't possibly get in there." "Aha!" smiled the goblin. And then he said a magic word, known only to goblins, which sounded like something like that. Suddenly, Mr. Uppity started shrinking. He shrank and he shrank until he was exactly the same size as the goblin. "Turn me back to my proper size at once," spluttered Mr. Uppity in a rage. "I shan't," groaned the goblin. And so saying, the goblin climbed through the hole into the tree. Poor Mr. Uppity didn't know what to do, so he followed him. Inside the tree, there was a staircase going down and down. It led directly to the kingdom of the goblins. "I demand to be taken immediately to whoever is in charge," said Mr. Uppity angrily. "Oh, you shall. So you shall," groaned the goblin. And he led Mr. Uppity through the streets of the kingdom of the goblins until they came to a palace. The goblin and Mr. Uppity passed through the gates and into a courtyard and through some more gates and along a long corridor and through some large gold doors and into a huge room. And there, sitting on a gold throne, was the king of the goblins. "Your Majesty," announced the goblin, bowing low, "may I present Mr. Uppity?" "Ah," said the king. "So you're the fellow who goes about being rude to everybody, doesn't have any friends." "Rubbish," said Mr. Uppity rudely. "I can see that what I have heard is true," said the king, looking at the indignant Mr. Uppity. "You're much too puffed up with your own importance. Therefore," he continued, "I'm going to allow you to be turned back to your proper size. But when you get back to Big Town, if you're rude to anybody at all, you will immediately shrink to the size you are now. You understand?" The goblin then took Mr. Uppity back through the kingdom of the goblins, and up the staircase, and out of the tree at the bottom of Mr. Uppity's garden. The goblin looked at Mr. Uppity and said something which sounded like "Googly-googly-googly," and Mr. Uppity grew and grew back to his original size. "Now, you remember what the king said," warned the goblin. "Don't you be so uppity in future." Mr. Uppity marched off furiously up to his enormous house. The following day, Mr. Uppity was out walking through the streets of Big Town. Suddenly, he came across a little boy playing with a ball. "Get out of my way," snapped Mr. Uppity rudely. But as soon as he'd said it, you know what happened, don't you? Yes, Mr. Uppity shrank and shrank until he was no bigger than the ball the boy was playing with. "Oh, dear," he gasped, and then he thought. "I'm sorry," he said to the boy. "What I meant to say was, please got to get past." Immediately, Mr. Uppity grew to his original size, and the boy moved, and Mr. Uppity went on his way. Then he met an old lady carrying a large shopping basket. "Excuse me," she said to Mr. Uppity, "could Would you tell me the time, please? No, said Mr. Uppity rudely. But as soon as he'd said it, you know what happened, don't you? Oh, dear, he gasped, and then he thought. I'm sorry, he said to the old lady. What I meant to say was, it's 25 past 11. Immediately, Mr. Uppity grew to his original size, and the old lady thanked him, and Mr. Uppity went on his way. Then he went and bought a newspaper from a man standing on the corner of the main street in Big Town. He was just about to walk away when suddenly he stopped and thought, turned back to the man and said, thank you. Thank you was a word Mr. Uppity had never used before. The man smiled. A smile was something Mr. Uppity wasn't used to getting. Thank you was a word Mr. Uppity not only had never used before, but it was a word he'd never had said to him before. Mr. Uppity smiled. He felt happy. Happy was a feeling Mr. Uppity wasn't used to feeling. He liked it. And do you know, from that day forward to this day backward, Mr. Uppity is a changed person. He's still the richest person in Big Town, perhaps the richest person in the world. But now he has lots of friends, and he smiles a lot, and he never gets that shrinking feeling. And do you know which two words Mr. Uppity uses most of all these days? Please and thank you.
So, Alfred! Two back.
Mr. Chatterbox was one of those people who simply couldn't stop talking. He used to talk to anybody and everybody about anything and everything, going on and on and on. On and on and on. And on and on and on. And when he didn't have anybody else to talk to, he used to talk to himself. Morning, Mr. Chatterbox, he said to himself. Morning to you. Nice day, isn't it? Yes, this was time of the year. And so on. So on. And on. And on. He lived in a box-shaped house in a village. Chatterbox Cottage. One morning, the postman arrived with a letter for him. Morning, Mr. Chatterbox, said the postman. Oh, good morning, little postman, replied Mr. Chatterbox. Although, as I was saying to myself only yesterday, or was it the day before, I forget. However, it's not quite so good a morning, in my opinion, but I might be wrong, although I'm not very often, as it was the other day. Monday, I think it was, or perhaps it was Tuesday. But never mind, because it is quite a good morning, don't you agree? Well, yes, of course you do, because that's what you said to me in the first place. And he went on and on and on all the morning. And the poor postman was late delivering all his letters. That afternoon, Mr. Chatterbox went into the hat shop in the village. Hello, Mr. Bowler, he said to the man who owned the hat shop. Do you think if it's possible that I could buy, if it's not too expensive, and I'm sure it won't be, a new hat? Because, would you believe it? Well, yes, what you would. But anyway, as I was saying, my present hat, the one on my head, as you can see, is getting, how can I put it, a little too old. Because I've had it for, let me see now, must be, let's see, 10 years? No, I tell a lie, it can't be that long. Or can it? Well, yes, it could be. On the other hand, and he went on and on all the afternoon, half the night. Long after poor Mr. Bowler should have shut up shop and gone home. Eventually, when Mr. Bowler managed to get a word in edgeways, or was it sideways, he promised to order a new hat for Mr. Chatterbox. And he pushed Mr. Chatterbox out of his shop, still talking, of course, and went home for his supper, which was cold, of course. Mr. Mrs. Bowler had cooked it for him hours ago. While he ate, he thought. Exactly 1 week later, the new hat for Mr. Chatterbox arrived. The postman delivered it to Mr. Bowler's shop. "Ah, at last," said Mr. Bowler, heaving a sigh of relief. "I think this hat is going to be the answer to the problem of Mr. Chatterbox talking so much." "Oh, I wish it could be," said the postman. "How can it?" "Because," replied Mr. Bowler, "this hat is a magic hat." "Oh," replied the postman, who didn't quite understand. That same afternoon, Mr. Bowler took the new hat round to Chatterbox Cottage. "Oh, goody," said Mr. Chatterbox, taking the hat off and opening it. "It's my new hat, my lovely new hat. Oh, I couldn't wait for it to arrive. In fact, I got up early this morning because, aren't I silly? I just knew, I don't know how, but I really knew, that today would be the day. I don't know how I knew, but I knew. And it is. And here is my hat. And oh, isn't it beautiful? I can't wait to try it on. Oh, I do hope it suits me. Do you think it will? What will do? And why don't you try it on?" said Mr. Bowler, grinning. "Try it on? Oh, but yes, of course I must try it on. I'll sit over and stand here chattering, but I haven't even tried it on yet. Yes, I will, absolutely, definitely. Try it on straight away. But anyway, because as I said, it's silly just to talk about trying it on, isn't it? And then not to try it on, isn't it? And so he took the hat out of the box and put it on. It's a beautiful hat. "I say," he said, "I must say, yes, I really must. This hat is, really, to say the least, one of the best hats I've ever seen in my life. And in my life, I must say, I've seen some hats. Trilbys, bowlers, deerstalkers, balloons, fedoras, Homburgs, operas, toppers, talking." But while he was talking, a funny thing was happening. The more words that came out of Mr. Chatterbox's mouth, the larger his hat became. The more Mr. Chatterbox talked, the more the hat grew and grew. Mr. Chatterbox kept on talking, and the hat kept on growing. "I can't see anything," he said. "One minute I was standing here looking at my new hat in the mirror, and now all of a sudden, without my warning, taking me all unawares, just like that, the hat grew down to his feet." And Mr. Chatterbox stopped talking. And as soon as he stopped talking, the hat grew smaller and smaller until it was the same size as when he'd first tried it on. Mr. Bowler was delighted. "My special magic hat really works," he chuckled. The following day, Mr. Chatterbox was out for a walk when he met the postman in the village. "Hello, postman," he said. "I said, you like my new hat? Have you ever seen such a fine hat? I'm sure you never had. What a hat!" he wrote. But you know what was happening, don't you? The hat grew and grew the more Mr. Chatterbox talked. "Now I know what Mr. Bowler meant by a magic hat," chuckled the postman, and he went on his way, leaving poor Mr. Chatterbox speechless. He thought, thinking, not talking, thinking. And you know something? That hat taught Mr. Chatterbox his lesson. And these days I don't talk half as much as I used to do, or even a quarter as much, or even a half or a quarter as much. But in short,
Eu vou ir pra casa da
I
minha
talk
avó.
less.
Eu vou ir pra casa da
You
minha
know
avó
the reason
depois,
for
é?
that, don't you? Yeah.
Depois, é?
But,
Que foi, Arthur?
Eu tô
keep it under your hat.
dizendo.
Quê?
Dizendo, eu tô
O
dizendo.
que você tá dizendo?
Eu vou pra casa da minha avó depois.
Ah, é?
Sim.